Hello. ഞാൻ തുടങ്ങാണ്. First അവന്റെ continuation. I'll be continuing what was left over from the first hour. Is it visible to you? Hello. Is the screen visible? Okay. So we were discussing about the conversion process of assembly language to machine language. And we were discussing about this figure in the morning. As I said, it follows modular programming. So a single source file, instead of writing a single source file, there will be multiple source files. And here we have named it as source file 1 and source file 2. And since it is assembly file, it has .asm or .src extension, and it is modular programming. So the source file is considered as module 1, and the source file 2 is considered as module 2. Now, once we have the source file, it is given to the module assembler, and the assembler converts it into an object file. So module 1 object file is object file 1, module 2 object file is object file 2. Now, this object file here generated, it is called relocatable object file. The object file that has been created after assembling is known as relocatable object file, because no addresses are linked to this code at present. It is not no memory address is allocated to the code that has been generated, this object file that has been generated. So the next step is the library files which are used in these object files will have to be linked to the object file, and this linking is done by the linker. And also these two separate source file, there are two separate modules of a single source file. They should be linked together. They should be given addresses in the code memory, and so that is done by the locator. So the linker links the necessary library files to these object files, and these files are given addresses, permanent addresses by the locator. Once it acquires the memory address, it is called the absolute object file. The relocatable object file changes to absolute object file, and this absolute object file is given to an object to hex file converter, which converts this absolute object file to machine code, which is a hex file. And this is the conversion process. Is it clear now? Is the figure clear now? Okay. So if you study this figure, the same block diagram can be used for the next section also. That is, here we are discussing about conversion of assembly language to machine language. Next section, we will be discussing about conversion of high-level language to machine language. The same block is used in the next section also. The same names, everything, except instead of module assembler, we use compiler. Module compiler is used since it is high-level language to machine language conversion. So instead of assembler, we need compiler. So the middle block will be substituted by a compiler. The name will be, instead of module assembler, it will be module compiler. So the block diagram will be the same. So if you study one block diagram, you can apply it in both. You can just modify it for the next section also. Okay. Anyway, even if it is a high-level language, finally we are getting the machine code. So instead of all these, and here instead of .asm file, there we will be having the high-level language file extension. So now let us discuss each. Whatever I said is summarized here. Hope you will understand when you read it, but I'm just going through it once again. Each source module is written, as you can see from the figure, each source module is written in assembly. and it is stored as .asm or .src file that is written below the name of the source file in the figure. And then the file is assembled separately. So if you have source file 1, it is given to the module assembler, and it is separately assembled to get the object file 1. Again, if you have another source file 2, it is again given to the assembler, and it will generate another object file, and we have named it here as object file 2. Now, so both the modules are assembled separately. Now, during the conversion process, the syntax errors and incorrect assembly instructions are identified, and so if there is any errors, we can correct it in the source file. Then on assembling each source or ASM file, a corresponding object file is created. So finally, after the assembly process, you will get an object file named here as object file 1, object file 2, and these files will have the extension .obj. So since it is another file format, so you call it as an object file, and the extension of the object file is .obj. Here we said ASM is assembly file, assembly language file, so .asm, then object converted to an object file. So now this file has the extension .obj. Then the object file, it does not, as I said earlier, it does not contain any permanent address. The permanent address is called absolute address. Any address that is fixed is called absolute address. So the object file does not contain absolute address of where this code will be placed in the program memory, and hence we call this object file as a relocatable segment. Since there is no fixed address assigned as yet, then you can place it in any code memory. So we call it as relocatable segment. This object file generated is called relocatable segment. So it can be placed at any code memory. Since no fixed memory has been assigned now, it can be placed into any code memory. So the program code resides in the code memory, and it is the responsibility of the linker or the loader to assign the address. So the main responsibility of the loader or linker is to assign absolute address for the object file that has been generated, and when after assigning the absolute address, it will also have to link, the linker will link the necessary library files used in these object files. So it can be placed at any code memory, and it is the responsibility of the loader or linker to address absolute address for this module. Now, absolute address allocation is done at the absolute object file creation stage. So here we are getting an absolute object file. Before creating this file, this absolute file, absolute addressing is carried out by the linker or the locator. And once it completes its operation, you get the absolute file. The absolute file is created. Absolute object file is created. Then each module can share variables. Now, if we said there are separate modules here, but these modules, they can share variables. They can call subroutines among each other. If there is a variable named a variable named A in module 1, then it can be accessed by module 2. This variables declared in module 1 can be accessed by module 2. Similarly, modules declared in module 2 can be accessed by module 1. That is, the variables and functions or subroutines can be shared among the modules. And to share these variables, what are the methods used in assembly language? That is what we are going to explain. I'm going to explain now. That is, each module can share variables and subroutines among them. Now we call it as exporting and importing variables. When one variable is used in another module, now suppose you have module 1 and module 2. Inside module 1, you have a variable which is used in module 2. Then inside module 1, I have to declare that variable as public. Only if I declare that variable as public in that module, it can be accessed by other modules. So if I want a variable in one module to be accessed by other modules, then I should declare the variable as public in that source module. And that is called exporting a variable from a module. So exporting a variable from a module is done by declaring that variable as public in the source module. So if I am declaring a particular variable as public in the source module, it can be accessed by modules or other modules. And so and that is called exporting a variable. So what is importing a variable? Did you understand what is exporting a variable? Anyone? Exporting a variable. Did you understand what I meant by exporting a variable? Hello? Can anyone say exporting a variable? I think nobody understood that. No response? Explain once again. So, here we said that there are multiple modules, isn't it? There is module 1, module 2, etc. Because corresponding to each module 1, you get an object file 1. Corresponding to module 2, you get an object file 2. As I said, any variable declared in module 1 can be accessed in module 2, or any variable declared in module 2 can be accessed by module 1. But in order to access variables declared in other modules, we have to declare those variables as either public, and if you're declaring the variable as public, then that particular variable can be used in other modules, and that is called exporting a variable from a module. It is done by declaring that variable as public in the source module. If I have module one, a variable A declared in module 1, then, and if I'm declaring it as public A in module 1, then it can be used by module 2 or any other module. If there are more than 2 modules, other modules can use it. But the thing is, it should be imported in that module which is going to use it. So if I'm exporting it from one module, it should be imported in the other module in which I am going to access it. So that is called exporting and importing. Once a module is getting exported, it means that it is being used by other modules. And importing a variable or a function from a module is done by declaring that variable or a function as external in the module where it is going to be accessed. If I'm declaring a particular variable as external in a module, then it implies that this particular variable has to be imported from some other module. That is, the variable is not declared in the source module, but it has to be taken from some other module. So in the other module, it should be declared as public. Only if it is declared as public in the other module, it can be imported in the source module. So if so that is the difference between exporting and importing. If a variable has to be used by other modules, it should be exported. That is done using the public keyword. And if a variable has to be imported from other modules, then it has to be declared as external in the module. And if you're using the word keyword external and declaring, and then you declare the variable, then it means that that particular variable has to be taken from some other module. So public keyword informs the assembler that the variable or a function needs to be exported. And external keyword informs the assembler that the variable or function needs to be imported from some other module. Now, corresponding to a variable or a function declared as public in a module, there can be more than one modules using these variables or functions with external keywords. So, if I'm declaring a variable as public in module 1, it can be used by module 2, module 3, module 4, etc. How many? With the 5 modules, all other modules, if they want, they can use this particular variable. So, and to use that variable, it should be declared as external in those modules. It will use the keyword external to use this public variable in the source module. So there can be one or more modules using a variable or function with external keyword. And hence, if suppose there is an external keyword in any module, there should be at least one module that declares that particular variable as public. So without public, you cannot import variables. Only if the variable is declared as public, it can be imported in other modules. If no modules export a variable or a function which is declared as extern, suppose in module 1 I'm telling the assembler that I'm going to use a variable from another module and I'm declaring it as extern. But no other modules, in other modules I haven't declared the public keyword. If the public keyword is not there for that particular variable in any other module, then the linker will generate an error or a warning. So if there is an external variable, there should be a module that declares it as public. At least one module that will declare it as public. That is how we export and import variables. Hello, any doubt? If you have any doubt, you can ask. കോൺസെപ്റ്റ് മനസ്സിലായോ? ഒരിടത്തു നിന്ന് എക്സ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അടുത്ത മൊഡ്യൂളിനകത്ത് അത് ഇമ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്തിരിക്കണം. എക്സ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നെന്ന് കാണിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന കീവേഡാണ് പബ്ലിക്. അതായത് ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് മേക്കിംഗ് ഇറ്റ് അവൈലബിൾ ടു അതർ മൊഡ്യൂൾസ്. അതിനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ C++ൽ പബ്ലിക് കീവേഡ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ഇറ്റ് ക്യാൻ ബി ആക്സസ് ബൈ അതർ ഫങ്ഷൻസ് ഔട്ട്സൈഡ് ദി ക്ലാസ് എന്ന് കാണിക്കുന്ന പോലെ ആണ് ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ എക്സ്റ്റേൺ കീവേഡ് എക്സ്റ്റേൺ യൂസ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇറ്റ് ക്യാൻ ബി ആക്സസ്ഡ് ബൈ other modules. It can public declare that it can be accessed by other modules, which are in the other module that particular variable should be declared as extern, showing that this variable comes from some other module. അപ്പം ഞാൻ ഒരു വേരിയബിൾ ഒരു മോഡ്യൂളിൽ നിന്ന് മറ്റൊരു മോഡ്യൂളിലേക്ക് എക്സ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്താൽ അപ്പുറത്തെ മോഡ്യൂളിനകത്ത് അതിനെ എക്സ്റ്റേൺ കീവേഡ് വെച്ച് ഇമ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്തിരിക്കണം. ഇനി ഞാൻ ഒരു എക്സ്റ്റേൺ എഴുതിയിട്ട് എങ്ങും അത് എക്സ്റ്റേൺ എന്നുള്ള കീവേഡ് ഒരു മോഡ്യൂൾ യൂസ് ചെയ്തു, പക്ഷേ എങ്ങും പബ്ലിക് എന്നൊരു കീവേഡ് ആ വേരിയബിളിന് ഇല്ല എങ്കിൽ ദെൻ ദർ വിൽ ബി എ എറർ. സോ ഒരിടത്തു നിന്ന് എക്സ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്താൽ അതിനെ എവിടെയെങ്കിലും ഇമ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യണം. അപ്പോൾ എക്സ്റ്റേൺ കീബോർഡ് യൂസ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു മോഡ്യൂളിൽ ആ വേരിയബിളിനെ പബ്ലിക് ആക്കി ഡിക്ലെയർ ചെയ്തിരിക്കണം. So that is how exporting and importing is done in assembly language. Next is library file creation and usage. Library file creation. So libraries are specially formatted program collection of object modules, and they can be used by the linker at a later time. Libraries contain a collection of obj files, and these we may not need all the obj files in a particular module, but if we want certain obj files, they can be used, and it is linked by the linker to a particular module. And library files are generated with extension .lib. Just we have source file as .src, assembly file .asm, then object file as .obj. Library files have the extension .lib, lib. Now it is a kind of source code hiding technique, because we are not writing the source code, but there is a source code already defined, an object file already created, and we are just using it. So some code is hidden there, and we are just using that code in a module. So it is a kind of source code hiding technique. Then when a linker processes a library, only the object module that is necessary for a program or for a module will be taken from the library. For using a library file in a project, we have to add that library to a project. An example of a library file is lib51, developed by Keel Software for A51 assembler or C51 compiler. So assemblers and compilers use library files. Both assembler and compiler can use library files. For A51 or C51 compiler, A51 assembler or C51 compiler, the library file that is already generated by Keel Software is lib51, and this is created for the processor 8051 specific controller. We said assembly language is processor dependent. So these are these compilers, this compiler, this assembler, and the library file. Therefore, 8051 controller. So library files. Next, we have linker and locator. So linker and locator, they are software utilities. They are responsible for linking the various object modules in a multi-module project. If there are multiple modules in a particular project, the linker and locator will link the various modules together, and it will assign addresses to these modules, and this address assigned by the locator is called the absolute address. Now, linker generates an absolute object file. After linking, you get an object file called the absolute object file. The object file created after assembling is called the simple object file, but after, and that is called a relocatable segment because it can be placed anywhere in the code segment. But after linking process, it is given a permanent address, and that is called that object file, which is given a permanent address in memory, is called absolute object file. And this absolute object file, they have the extension .obj files, and they and this is done after obj files are created by individually assembling the individual modules. Then it also links the external dependencies, or like we said, there can be external variables, public variables, etc. So the linker also links the externally dependent variables, importing and exporting variables. If it is done in the module, then those addresses are also linked by the linker, and it resolves the external dependencies among the modules. If one module is depending on another module for a particular variable, then the linker will assign, or a linker will link that variable to the module. Then the absolute object file, it does not contain any relocatable code. Now it has all its address necessary to be placed in the code memory, and so it will not have any relocatable code after that, and it has absolute addresses, and they reside at fixed memory locations. Absolute object file resides at fixed memory locations. Now this object file is used for creating the hex file, and once the hex file is created, it is dumped into the code memory of the processor or the controller. Now BL51 from Field Software is a linker and locator for A51 assembler or C51 compiler for 8051 specific controller. For this 8051 specific controller, the assembler and compiler uses BL51 um, linker and locator. So this linker and locator is target processor dependent. Next last stage is the object to hex file converter. So we said once the absolute object file is created, it is given to a converter called the hex file object to hex file converter program, and this is the final stage in the conversion of assembly language to machine language. And these hex files, they are ASCII files. The codes are written in ASCII, and it contains hexadecimal representation of the target application. The file, the entire contents of the file will be in hexadecimal format, and hex files are created from the final absolute object file and using the object to hex file converter utility. So it is this utility, as you can see in the block diagram, the object to hex file converter. The object to hex file converter converts this absolute object file to machine code, which is in hex format. Then this hex file are they done. Finally, the hex file has all its address. After linking, it has everything necessary for running the program by the processor, and it is dumped into the code memory of the processor. Once it is in code memory, the processor will read instruction by instruction and start execution. Now, this hex file representation, it depends on the target processor. As we said earlier, that here for Intel processor, the hex file is in the format Intel hex. For Motorola, it is in the Motorola hex format. So it depends again, everything in assembly language depends on the processor that is being used. An example of an object to hex file converter, the name of an object to hex file converter is OH51 from Keel Software for 8051 microcontroller. OH51 is the name of an hex file converter that converts absolute object file to hex file. So this is developed again by Keel Software, and it is they developed it for 8051 processor. So for each of these, we have given examples also. OH51 is an object to hex file converter for 8051 processor developed by Keel. BL51 is a linker and locator. Then lib51 is the library file. and so on. So for each of them, we have all these are dependent on the processor, target processor. So this is the conversion process of assembly to machine language conversion process. Did you understand? Hello? Now, as I said, library file, hex file, etc., you can write it, the same content can be written for the next stage also. Instead of assembler, we are replacing it with compiler, that's all. But both are show questions. So now, advantages of assembly language based development. Now, this is the first, when we were discussing about the first type of language for firmware development, that is assembly language based development, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of assembly language based development. So, what are the advantages? The main advantages are there is efficient code memory and data memory usage, that is, memory optimization is high. Okay, since the developer is well aware of the target processor architecture, the memory details, etc., the addressing modes, etc., it is very, he can write code efficiently. So efficient memory utilization and data memory utilization can be is possible if it is written in assembly language, firmware is written in assembly language. So memory is the primary concern in embedded products because it has to be deployed as a single product. So maximize the utilization of memory is the main concern of most of the embedded products. So since the developer has good knowledge about the target processor architecture, memory organization, he can write optimized code which leads to less utilization of code memory and efficient utilization of data memory. So since he is well aware of the target architecture, he can write efficient short codes for performing operations. The next advantage is high performance. So since the code is optimized, it improves the overall performance of the application. Then third advantage is low-level hardware access. That is, since assembly languages are very closely tied to the hardware components, we have instructions for accessing, controlling the devices through our assembly language program when compared to high-level language. So most of the code for low-level programming, like accessing the external devices, the registers, the operating system kernel, etc. There, it is possible using high level. Most of the instructions support these features, accessing the hardware. The next is code reverse engineering. Now, code reverse engineering, or what is reverse engineering? You might have studied in software engineering about reverse engineering. Isn't it? What is reverse engineering? Have you heard of this term, reverse engineering? Have you heard of the term reverse engineering? So, reverse engineering is the process of. Oh, Atul, what is reverse engineering? Do you know what is reverse engineering? Okay, what is reverse engineering? You can say the answer.
ഒരു പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിന് അതെങ്ങനെ മേക്ക് ചെയ്താൽ പറ്റുമല്ലോ.
Other technology, you're going to identify the technology or methodology underlying a particular product. അതൊരു ലെജൻഡറി പ്രോഡക്റ്റ് ആയിരിക്കാം, വളരെ യൂസിൽ നിൽക്കുന്ന പ്രോഡക്റ്റ് ആയിരിക്കാം. അപ്പോൾ ഈ പ്രോഡക്റ്റ് വളരെ ഹൈ ഡിമാൻഡ് ഉള്ള ഒരു പ്രോഡക്റ്റ് ആയിരിക്കാം മാർക്കറ്റിൽ. ഇതിൻ്റെ ടെക്നോളജി എന്താണെന്ന് മറ്റൊരാൾ കണ്ടുപിടിക്കുന്നതിനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ, അപ്പോൾ വി ആർ സ്റ്റാർട്ടിങ് ഫ്രം ദി പ്രോഡക്റ്റ് ആൻഡ് ഗോയിങ് ബാക്ക് ടു ദി എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് ടെക്നോളജി. സാധാരണ നമ്മൾ ടെക്നോളജി യൂസ് ചെയ്ത് പ്രോഡക്റ്റ് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്യും. ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ പ്രോഡക്റ്റ് കിട്ടിയിട്ട് തിരിച്ച് ടെക്നോളജിയിലേക്ക് പോവുക, എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഇത് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. അങ്ങനെ യൂഷ്വലി ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് ഡൺ ബൈ ഹാക്കേഴ്സ് ടു ഐഡന്റിഫൈ ദ സീക്രട്ട് ബിഹൈൻഡ് ദി പ്രോഡക്ട്സ്. സോ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ആവശ്യം അങ്ങനെ അതാണ് യൂഷ്വലി നടക്കുന്നത്. And it can be in good termsലാണെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അതുപോലെ ഒരു നല്ല പ്രോഡക്റ്റിനെ വീണ്ടും ഉണ്ടാക്കാനായിട്ട് ശ്രമിക്കുക, അതും വരാം. So we are going from the product back to the technology, അതിനെയാണ് റിവേഴ്സ് എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So here in using assembly language, reverse engineering can be easily done. കാരണം it is usually placed, this code is usually placed in the code memory, from memory protection area. But if it is possible to protect this memory area, you will get the code. Once you get the assembly code, there is a program called a disassembler, which can convert this program to its assembly code, the target code, the hex file to its corresponding assembly code. So disassemblers does the reverse of assembling process. So using disassembler, we can convert it into its original assembly code. So reverse engineering process is possible with assembly code. So next, we are going to the drawbacks of assembly language-based development. Now, assembly language-based development, it is a most efficient technique when compared to the other techniques, but it has limitations because of high development time. As we said, the developers must be efficient in developing in writing the firmware. He has to study the architecture, the memory, addressing modes, etc. And only if he has good knowledge about the architecture, he will be able to develop the product, write a firmware in assembly language. So assembly language is harder to program when compared to high level language because we have to study the instruction set for processor architecture, etc. So developers must have thorough knowledge of the architecture, memory organization, and the register details. Now the register details of 8085 may not be the same as that of 8086. It may not be the same as 8051. So they have to study the details, only then it is possible to write the assembly code. So, and learning the inner details and assembly instructions is time consuming, and it will create delay in product development. That's one disadvantage. Then more lines of assembly code is needed for performing an action, which can be done with a single instruction in high level language. Instead of writing if you are writing a operation and using a single instruction in high level language, when we are converting it into assembly code, you need multiple lines to do the same function. Then the remedy to this drawback is, a solution to this drawback is avail developers who have good knowledge in the target processor. Instead of making a developer learn a new architecture, you have to employ developers who have good knowledge in the target processor architecture in that particular assembly instruction. Instead of asking a developer to study a new architecture, we have to employ a developer who was thorough about the architecture. Then second is developer dependency. That is, the programming approach varies from one developer to the other. So he has the freedom to choose his memory locations. He has the freedom to choose his registers, etc. So the code depends on the developer who has developed the product. So a typical example is moving data from memory location to accumulator. It can be achieved in different ways, but and each developer may use his own ways to do a single operation. And upgrading this assembly program or modifying it on a later stage will be difficult because the code written by one person will be different from another person's code, and to understand what the other person has written, it is a time consuming process. So the only solution for this drawback is document the code as he develops it. That is, write what he is, the developer should put comments for each line which he is writing, so that at a later stage, not only the developer but others who are trying to understand the code will also understand what the assembly code is. So that is developer dependency. Then the third drawback is non-portable. As I said from the beginning itself, this code depends on the a processor that we are going to program. So if it is written for one processor, it will not work for another processor. So target applications is written in assembly instructions. They are valued only for a particular family of processors. If the target processor or controller changes, a complete rewriting of the assembly instructions is required. If I'm writing an assembly program in 8085 and I cannot use it for 8086 because the instruction set is different, I have to study the new instruction set and write the code from scratch. So we say that it is non-portable. The assembly code written to 8085 will not work on 8086. This makes the application non-portable. Okay, so these are the three drawbacks: non-portable, developer dependency, and high development time are the three drawbacks of assembly language-based development.
The time also.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I'll see your attendance, please. Number one, present. Number two, okay. Number five, answer. Number six, number seven, number seven, Arjun. Number seven, absent. Number eight, Ashwin. Number nine, Atul Satyapal. Number 11, 12. Number 12. Number 13. Number 14. Number 16. Number 17. Number 18. Mohammed Jassel. Okay. Number 20. Number 22. Number 23. Number 24. Number 26. Number 27. Number 28. Number 29. Number 30. Number 31. Number 32. Number 33. Number 33. Harita. Number 30. Number 3. Amal Santosh. Okay. Number 7. Absent. Atul Dinesh. Absent. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.